Okay then, so I guess let's get started. So today we are continuing on the cloud concepts which we started yesterday, and
Okay.
then when we have time, we will move on with the Azure concepts as well. So yesterday we discussed about what is cloud, why do we use it. We also discussed benefits of cloud,
Benefits,
right?
right?
It covered a lot of terminologies as well.
Correct.
All right. So today, let's move on with some service stack. Maybe before that, cloud deployment. All right. So let's first see cloud deployment models. So while working with cloud, basically there are three types of cloud deployment models, like how we can actually work with it or how people works with it. So you probably heard of term public cloud. Then there is private cloud, and then there is something called as hybrid cloud. Okay, so these three are basically what we call as cloud deployment models. Okay, cloud deployment models, and these are the we can say how you will work or how you will define your infrastructure. So basically, we all know initially we have our on-premise infrastructure, and if we are using cloud, we have public cloud infrastructure. And then there are other things like where we have all our infrastructure, where we have our some of the infrastructure, and depending on that, we call them like different cloud deployment models. So public cloud is that when you have all infrastructure in cloud. So this is also called as cloud native. So when we have our infrastructure, but all of it's in cloud, so we are only using cloud for our workloads, for our daily needs, etc. So let's say I am working on some server and on some stuff. I have servers. I have networking. I might using some services by cloud. So everything is in cloud. So I have no on premise infra or yeah, either the infrastructure or data centers. So when there is no on premise infrastructure and everything I'm using is in cloud. So if I'm using Azure for all my needs. Okay. So that type of cloud model is called as public cloud. So for smaller organizations, maybe startups, for personal users, we see these as well. So when the companies don't want to invest in those upfront cost of your data centers or infrastructure, those are what we basically call as public cloud. So we have all our infrastructure, but it's all is in cloud. Okay. And then there is something called as private cloud. So private cloud is when companies are only using private infra. So their all their workload is running on their private infrastructure. Okay. But again, if it's private infrastructure, they can serve their remote users. They can serve their uh, federation companies, so partner companies. So they have only using private infrastructure. So everything they're running, it's in their own data center, and it is available for internal use. So internal company use or their partner use. So if they are company they are partnered with. So that infrastructure only their internal employees or company or their partner companies can use, partner corporations. So those are what we saw with a private cloud. So bigger companies which don't want to use any other cloud provider, they don't want their data to be stored somewhere else instead of their own infrastructure. That is called as private cloud. Okay. So they still be serving their users over the internet, but all the infrastructure and resources would be their own. So they are not using like AWS, Azure, or anything at all. And then finally, or I should say the most important one, this is mostly used. So this is the mostly used deployment model, and it is called as hybrid cloud. And this is nothing but your combination of public and private. So companies have all of the infrastructure, not all of the infrastructure, like some of the infrastructure in on-premise. Okay, so let's say this is on-premise. And they are using some in cloud as well. Some is in cloud. So here they basically get the best of both worlds. So if you have infrastructure in on-premise, just like in private cloud, you have full control over it, right? So all the infrastructure you have full control over. So you can make it like very secure. You can make it just for your internal use. So there's some critical files, critical softwares that you don't want to be anywhere else other than your own data center. So those softwares or infrastructure or workload you can put in your on-premise data centers, and where you will have full control over data, infrastructure, and everything. Whereas the rest of it, when you need those cloud benefits like agility, the global reach, elasticity, auto scaling, all of these things, right? So that in those cases or those scenarios, you can make use of this public cloud, and you can get those cloud benefits. Okay. So making use of your already provisioned on-premise infrastructure, as well as getting the capabilities of cloud, is what we call as hybrid cloud deployment model. So this is, like I said, the mostly used, most popular, because most of the companies at least have some of the servers in their on-premise. And once the cloud come, they don't generally, just want to migrate everything to cloud. They still want to use that investment they have done in your servers. They don't get, deprecated, or not deprecated, but they don't get stale or not being used at all. So they are using those as well, and they are using the new cloud benefits as well. Okay. So that's a couple of reasons. Using their already provisioned infrastructure, um, having critical workload close to them or on their full control, and then still having the all the benefits that cloud provide, the upfront cost, the operational expenses. Let's say I need something that is, I don't have that kind of infrastructure, so I don't need to go ahead and buy it. So I can just provision that kind of infrastructure in Azure or in cloud, right?
Okay, right.
And then combining both of these, making use of both of these, would be called as hybrid cloud. Okay. So this is your public cloud, and this is your private, combining both of these, and this is called as your hybrid. And mostly you will see that they're not going over the internet with the connectivity. They can have private connectivity as well. So that's up to you. Either you want fully private connectivity or you want public connectivity, public or private. Okay, so these are possible as well in hybrid cloud. Okay, and these are your three cloud deployment models. Any questions?
So like the connectivity will be like secure, right, sir? For if we take the private connectivity, just to access the cloud, right?
Yeah, so basically with private connectivity, we use VPNs or something called as express route. And
Okay.
public connectivity would be like, let's say I am using Azure, right? So I'm going over the internet and I'm using it. So that would be your public connectivity. It's still secure, encrypted
Yeah,
SPDF.
without using any VPN, that will be a public. For
Yeah,
private, we should use a VPN.
right. So when you're going over the internet, it's public connectivity. When you're using that private tunnel, VPN tunnel, that would be your private connectivity. Okay. All right. Okay. Anything else? Hi, Karthik. Can you hear me?
Yeah, hi sir.
Hi. You got a little late today, I guess.
Yeah, like connectivity issue somewhere.
Okay. No worries. So basically, we were waiting initially, so we didn't cover much. So we just started with this cloud deployment models. and public cloud, private cloud, and hybrid cloud. So public cloud is your cloud native when all your infrastructure would be in cloud. Okay, you're not using any provisioning hardware in on-premise. Private cloud would be your only internal, only private infrastructure that you will provision all the upfront cost and everything. And hybrid would be just combination of both, which is all. So this is all we have covered right now. Okay.
Okay.
So yeah. So moving on. So now there's a thing called service stack or service types. So like we know that one of the major benefit of cloud is the managed services. So if we want to use SQL, I don't need a server in there. Then I have to provision operating system on it. On top of it, I have to run SQL Server or something, MySQL, something like that. So I can just use Azure SQL. If I want to use Firewall, I don't have to provision Firewall manually or do something like that. I can just use Azure Firewall. So these managed services have different types. So what types of services does cloud offer, or in general you can see? So most of three major types are your IaaS, then it's PaaS, and then finally it's SaaS.
SPSS.
Right. So this is called as, I'll just write it out here. This full form is infrastructure as a service. Okay. This is your platform as a service, and this is your software as a service. All right, and these are three major types. I should emphasize on major. These are three major types. So infrastructure as a service. So when let's take example of servers again. So we have servers. Let's take example of maybe networking hardware as well. So if I have to provision servers, I need that actual physical servers. I need, talking about networking, if I need two servers to be on the same network, I need that network connectivity, either routers, whatever. Okay, switches, routers, whatever. So I am provisioning infrastructure in on-premise. And if I have to use the same kind of infrastructure in cloud, I can, let's say, talk about servers. In Azure Cloud, we call them virtual machines. Okay. This is basically a service called Azure Virtual Machines that let you provision servers. And if I want a network, I can make something called as VNet, that is virtual networks. Okay. So having the hardware mapping from on-premise to cloud, when we have something that is hardware or infrastructure, we consider it in on-premise. Similar infrastructure when we provision in cloud, those types of services are called as infrastructure as a service. Okay. So virtual machines. If I have to provision virtual machines in on-premise, I need to buy servers, right? On the top of the servers, I will run multiple virtual machines. So those infrastructure, when we are making it in cloud, are called as infrastructure as a service, or those types of services are called as infrastructure as a service, just like your virtual machine or VNet. However, in this one, you have to manage the networking at virtual level, the firewalls, if what kind of connectivity you need from the internet or anything that you have to manage. But infrastructure, the compute, the servers that would be in the Microsoft data center, they are managed by themselves, by Microsoft itself, as well as networking. So those are managed automatically. So that's why they are provisioning it as a service. The infrastructure, they're managing it and they're giving it to you. That's why it's infrastructure as a service. You're using these services and they're providing you infrastructure. Then other one is PaaS, platform as a service. So in this one, it gives you a platform to work with certain workloads. Let's take example of Azure Web Apps. So Azure Web Apps is a platform as a service, and it let you just write and deploy as well as host, deploy and host your web applications. Okay. So here you don't need to configure any runtime environment. You just choose it and it will provision it for you. You don't need to worry about the operating system updates and everything. So it will provision that for you, everything. So it will basically give you the platform to work with your workload. So that's coming back here. So here you will get a virtual machine where it will install an operating system. But updating that operating system, that's your responsibility. What kind of runtime environment you want to install it on it, that is your responsibility. What else? So either you want to schedule it to shut down or restart, that's your responsibility, right? So all of it, you just get infrastructure, but rest of it, you have to worry about it yourself. You have to manage yourself. Whereas in this one, it manages the platform. So it's still in the backend, it's gonna running some servers. On top of that, it's gonna run some what we say operating system. On top of that, it's gonna run some integration environment, integration runtime. It could be .NET, it could be Django, whichever you know you want to code in, whichever language. So the thing is, it's managed all of it. It just provides you the platform that you can just work with for your application or your service. So those type of services are called as your platform as a service, where you don't just get infrastructure provision, you get platform managed as well. Okay, so you don't have to worry about the web apps, whichever the operating system it's running, update. So you don't have to update that or worry about that. It's all managed by itself. And then finally, we have software as a service. That is pretty simple. So take an example of maybe Microsoft Excel, right? So here you don't do anything. You just use the service. Here we just use the service or use the software. Just like Microsoft Excel, Word, something else as well, whichever you're paying for it subscription basis. You're just using that and you're just giving your data. So you're not maintaining anything here. You're still writing code. You're maintaining your application, right? Here, application is already there. You're just using the application, software or application. Okay, and this would be the example of your software as a service. When you're doing, you're not managing anything. You're just working with your data. So in Excel, we just put our data, and that's all we have to do. Right. So these are the three service types. However, you will see there are some more. So let's take an example of maybe firewall. So any of you can, what do you guys think? Like what would be firewall? Either it would be infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or software as a service. What do you think?
Space.
Platform. Okay. Ravi, what do you think?
Space and space
For
also.
sir, infra and pass for both.
Both. Yeah. So basically, if you remember, I said these are major services type. So all of these three can be categorized for most of the services, but there are some services that doesn't fall neatly into any of these. So if you say firewall is a platform as a service, you would be right. If you say it's infrastructure as a service, you still be right. Okay. But we are not here to fight. Somebody might say it's infrastructure because it's physical infrastructure. Somebody say platform because they are giving you the firewall installed and everything, right? So we just consider that as firewall as a service. Okay, so some services are there that doesn't fit neatly into these three categories. So that's why most of the services will fit in this. That's why I said major services type. But some services are not neatly fit in this category. So we just call them, firewall as a service. So if it's, let's say, Azure Active Directory. Azure Active Directory is a service that manages users and everything. Some might say it is platform as a service. Some might say it's a software as a service. However, it doesn't neatly fit into any of these. So it's just called as IDaaS, which is identity as a service. Okay. So don't worry about these too much, that every service, either it's PaaS, either it's SaaS. If it neatly fits into it, like web apps, okay, it's a PaaS. But there would be some services like firewall that might not fit into all of these, any of these categories. Okay, So we can just call it Firewall as a service, identity as a service, maybe database as a service as well. Okay. Is this clear? Any questions on this way?
No.
Okay. All right. So these are some services we get offered from cloud and everything. Also, one more thing. All of this has to be a subscription-based model. Subscription-based model. So what do I mean by this? All are subscription-based model.
All are paid.
Yeah, paid, but it's like subscription means that they are paid, but they are paid regularly. So it's not like you can pay for one thing and it is forever yours. Okay. So just like for maybe Office 365, you are using licenses and licenses get expired and you have to purchase them again. Okay. You might need to purchase again. So if I'm taking example of maybe a video game, right? I can buy a video game, I can play it, and that's all. So it's not like if I'm, purchasing a video game, I'm paying for it again and again. I just paid for it one time, that's all. However, if we're talking about, when we're talking about IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS, it has to be subscription based. So either I'm paying for it monthly or yearly or in any periodically. Okay, sorry about the spelling. Yeah, wait. Okay, so periodically. So when you are paying for something periodically, it becomes a subscription based. So just like Netflix, Netflix is a subscription based model. So that is software as a service. You're just using it, right? So other things might be, what else we're using as subscription based? Yeah, let's take example of these. So VM we are using, we are paying for it monthly. Everything else we're using platform or any the software as a service, we're paying for it either monthly or either yearly based on the model you have selected. So all of this has to be subscription based. So if I'm talking about back to video game, when I'm purchasing the video game, I'm playing it, it's not a software as a service because one time I paid for it and it's done. So it's all upfront. So these are not considered in any of this. So you have to have a subscription based model, then you're paying for it periodically. Then only it will be considered among these.
For all the threes, right, sir? And
Yes,
any one
all
of them we need to use. For that, we need a subscription based model.
right, all three. Okay. All right. So that's that. That is your service stacks. And final thing we need to discuss about cloud concepts are something called as shared responsibility model.
Sir, can you explain what is RBAC and non-RBAC?
RBAC and non-RBAC. So we're going to discuss that in the first domain. So RBAC is basically role-based access control. And non-RBAC, I don't think that's a term, basically. So I can see RBAC, that is role-based access control, when we give some users access to certain resources. Okay, so then we use something called as RBAC roles. Okay, and non-RBAC would be AD roles that would be specific to Active Directory. So RBAC roles, non-RBAC roles, non-RBAC roles are called as AD roles. So that won't make sense at the moment, I guess, because we haven't covered Azure Active Directory or anything. So
No. That today I created a RBAC folder, na? So that's why I'm asking you what is RBAC and non-RBAC.
You created what? Sorry.
Today I created a RBAC folder.
Folder. Where did you create it?
In the company, sir. Today it's for 24/7, sir. 24/7, sir.
Okay, so is it like in cloud or is it in Windows Server or somewhere else?
In AD also I created and even other cloud also created, sir.
Okay. So yeah, it's RBAC is, I think you may have created the group for RBAC which you want to give access. Is that right?
Right.
Yeah. So yeah, that's where the role-based access control comes. So we're gonna discuss that in
That
detail.
okay.
Okay. Any other question?
No.
All right. Okay. So that's now let's discuss about shared responsibility model. What is this? So shared responsibility model gives you the idea or basically divides the responsibility. So it divides the responsibility between cloud provider and customer or consumer. Okay. So what does this mean? So let's say let's take example of infrastructure as a service. Okay. Infrastructure as a service, I'm getting a virtual machine that is kind of a server, and I'm working with that everything. So all the thing that going on to the infrastructure, so the physical infrastructure, the power, the backup, uh, networking, and everything else. So that is whose responsibility? That is not my responsibility, right? I'm already getting it from cloud. I'm already paying for it. So that is your Microsoft or cloud provider's responsibility. And if I'm talking about the operating system it's running, let's say it's Windows, and on that, if I'm making it available to everyone, it's open, ports are all open at the physical level or at the operating system level. And if somebody I give the username and credentials, username and password to everyone, and somebody deleted my data or my data got breached, so that is not Microsoft responsibility, right? That is my responsibility. How I'm configuring those operating systems, how I'm configuring the security at the virtual level. So that's where shared responsibility model comes in, and it just clearly defines the whose responsibility is what. Okay, so it's not like if something goes on Microsoft side, I am to blame. It is these they are to blame. So we can work with them how they're going to compensate or how it is. So all that basically gets divided or explained in the shared responsibility model. So in shared responsibility model, either for IaaS, either for PaaS, either for SaaS, we can get the idea at least of what is our responsibility to manage and what is Microsoft responsibility to manage. So Azure have their own shared responsibility model, AWS have their own. Most of these, all of it would be similar, okay, according to the services type, because services are just these three majorly, and it is same for all cloud providers. However, if we go to their websites, we can get it. So if I just go to the browser for a moment. Uh, yep. So if I go to the browser and if I just go to Google and search for shared responsibility model, and here I will add Azure. Okay. And if I open the first link, and here I can read about it. So here is the picture which we're looking for. So here they are discussing the responsibility. Okay. And here they are differentiating it either on-premise, either IaaS, PaaS, or SaaS. And here we have light blue ones are Microsoft, the dark ones are the customers. And if this was, so some of it is Microsoft, some of it is customers. Here, if you think on-premise, we know everything is our responsibility. So if I'm getting the server, right, Microsoft is not, um, ideal for that, giving any taking any responsibility. If I'm talking about infrastructure as a service, Microsoft or cloud provider is responsible for the physical data centers, where the servers gonna store their physical networking, the actual routing, switching goes on in those networks, data centers, physical host, the compute, their updates at the physical level. So they are all Microsoft responsibility. Other than that, managing operating system, uh, network control, that is virtual network control, applications I'm running, identity and directory, which username I'm using to sign in, and everything, information I'm storing it on that as well. Okay, and where I'm running it. So all of these are my responsibility or customer's responsibility. Microsoft has nothing to do with it. That is in the case of IaaS. If I'm talking about platform as a service, operating system is also cloud provider's responsibility. Network controls, some of them are cloud responsibility, some of them are mine. So if I want to integrate networks with some other networks, that I can do in platform as service as well. So that's why it says shared. Similar to applications, some of it similar to identity and directory. So, okay. And then finally, software service, everything till here, till application, managing the application is cloud provider responsibility or Microsoft responsibility. Identity and directory infrastructure, some of it is there, some of it is mine, because if there's an application that has its own identity and directory infrastructure, that is not Microsoft, that is mine. I'm just running the, I'm just giving the information about it, identity, the username and passwords. So similar to that, accounts and identities, which I'm putting, where I'm running them. So those devices where I'm running. So if I'm running, any software service on my laptop, and my laptop got stolen or my laptop got hacked, that is not, again, Microsoft responsibility. And finally, again, information and data. So whichever data I'm inputting, if I'm inputting, let's say, credit card information or something else, that is not their responsibility. Again, that is on me if something goes wrong with that. Okay. So that's why basically we have all this shared responsibility model that gives you an idea of what is whose responsibility and which is what. So you can go ahead and read more about it if you want. And if you click here, you can just basically download the full white papers for the shared responsibility model. Okay. So I can share you this link, the chat. So if you want to read it later. Okay. So that's all basically who's what responsibility, that is all shared responsibility. Any questions on this?
No.
Okay. All right then. So let's come back. And that was basically all we want to discuss about the cloud basics. And that should be more than enough to go on. Now what we can do is just move on directly to Azure. So we've been discussing about cloud, right, a lot. What does this mean? We discussed that yesterday as well, some basics and benefits. Now we will start with Azure basics or Azure concepts. That will get us started on the what is then how the infrastructure of Azure is made, and high level overview of it. Then we can move into the actual core administration stuff and working with that. Okay. All right. So if you guys, whenever you guys need any 5 minutes break or anything, I know this is like 2 hours classes. So whenever you need a 5-minute break or anything, we can just take that in the middle of session. So for a restaurant, let me know. Okay, so let's start with Azure Basics. You know that Azure Basics, what is Azure already? It is a cloud service provider. It is a cloud provider by Azure, by Microsoft, sorry. And we know what is cloud, and there are different flavors of it: AWS, Azure, and Google Cloud, and Azure is by Microsoft. Okay. So Azure offers a lot of services. We discussed that yesterday as well, why you would want to choose Azure apart from other cloud providers. And now let's discuss about how it is built. So the architecture of it. And this is again very important because we're going to use it in day-to-day basis. So architecture or architectural components of Azure. You got the picture. Okay. So Azure is cloud. And what is cloud? These are different data centers that are built by these big companies like Microsoft here across the world, in different regions, in different nations, and everything. So talking about them, we have 4 major components of which basically stands the Azure architecture. One is region, other is availability zone, Then we have data centers. Then we have region pairs. And finally, there is geography. That is not something which, that is not something very important. That is more of a conceptual concept. Geography. Okay, so 5. I said it wrong. So important is regions and availability zones, as well as a little bit of region pair. So what are these? So regions, we can just simply consider them as the locations, okay? The geographical locations where my resource is gonna be. So it starts like this. So first we have regions somewhere here. Inside that, I'm gonna have availability zones, and there's gonna be multiple always, at least around 3, most of the times. AZ1, AZ2, AZ3. Okay, and these are availability zones. And in availability zones, we have data centers. Data center 1, and you can call it DC2 or whatever. Okay, and similar to these, similar to this. So this is how it works. So we know that at the lowest level, there's going to be data centers. In those data centers, my servers going to be in. There are going to be numbers of servers in each data center. And there, where basically my machines would be running, or anything I create would be run, my data and everything. So these multiple data centers, they are connected with each other. Similar to that, availability zones are also connected with each other via something called as Microsoft Backbone. Okay, and Microsoft Backbone or Microsoft Backbone network, however you want to call it. So these are your high bandwidth, low latency connection. High bandwidth, so very, very high state of the art, you can say, connections you will get. High bandwidth and low latency connection, low latency network. Okay, so you have data centers multiple in certain area, and if there are 3 of those, would be basically a container for availability zone. So availability zone is nothing but a combination of multiple data centers. Okay, and then combination of multiple availability zones is what we call as a region. And region is the, we can just say, a location. So where we want to put our resources, we can just put them into a region. Region could be either, in India, there are 3 regions, like Central India, then there's South India, then there is West India. And in every country, everywhere, there are different regions. Okay. I think in America, there are maybe 10 regions or so. Then there is in Southeast Asia, that is Singapore, there is Japan regions, and everywhere. So where you want to put your resources, that is what we call as region. And what is a region? It contains multiple availability zones. What is availability zone? It contains multiple data centers. Okay. And all of these availability zones and data centers will be connected to each other via Microsoft Backbone. All these data centers would have their own, separate power supply and everything. So if one power supply fails, it doesn't affect other data centers and everything. Okay. And they are connected with each other from high bandwidth, low latency networks.
Basically, this data center 1, 2, 3 is ADC.
Data center 1, 2, 3 is
ADC, additional backup.
Yeah, we could say that. So they're not like particularly for backup. So basically, if if this data center doesn't have certain type of compute, so let's say I need a server that requires 256 GB of RAM, right? Maybe I don't, it got over in this one, so it's filled up. So it can put us into the second data center as well. So this is not generally just for your backup, but just multiple. Obviously, it's going to use for backup as well. So there are different reasons, not just backup, but more as well. All right. So that's that. And when we create a resource, we just put it, give it a name of a region. That's all. We don't select availability zones or data center. Data center, we just can't choose. However, for some services like a virtual machine, we can still pick availability zones if we want. Okay, so that's across. However, for like 90% of services, you will just give them region and it will put it in one of the availability zone. In availability zone, we know that there can be different data centers for redundancy purposes or for other purposes. Okay, and finally, not finally, we have something called as geography. And geography, we can just consider that as a market. Okay, it's not necessarily something we can consider as a country. Geography. So we can consider that as a market. Okay. So India is a market. Similar to that, we can say the US, North America is a market, but it's not supposed to be just one country, right? So geography is just multiple regions that mostly span across a single market. Right? That is again not a very important concept that you generally need. We don't even see the term geography at the in the portal, Azure portal or anything, but it is a term that you will see in the Microsoft documentation. And it is nothing but a market that has multiple regions. Okay. And finally, we have region pairs. And region pairs are coupling of regions. So there are two regions coupled for disaster. So what does this mean? So basically, let's say there is a data center or availability zone, and your machines was here. All your machine and services was here. It could be in availability zone as well, right? It could be in any of these availability zones. You don't know. So what if there is a issue with the data center where your machine is? Or what if there is issue with the availability zone, one of the availability zone? Or what if there's an issue with the full region? It doesn't generally happen that you will see issue with the full region or issue with the multiple availability zones, but sometimes it can happen. We don't know. In case of a disaster, maybe. So maybe there's a natural disaster in South India, right? So that disrupts everything. The whole South India region is down. So in those cases, Microsoft does this kind of additional region pair coupling where two regions coupled for disaster and they are replicated with each other. They're just replicated. Yeah, we can say with each other. Okay. So in case one region, full region goes down, your data is not permanently lost. Okay. You still have, let's say Central India would be coupled with South India. South India may be coupled with West India or something like that. So these regions would be coupled or replicated with from one another. There's going to be asynchronous replication. Asynchronous means it's not like at the moment. It's not like as soon as I update something, it's going to go to the other region as well. It's going to take its time. We are not sure when it does. So that depends on multiple factors. So that's why it's called as asynchronous replication. And the time it will take, that will totally up to the Microsoft standards. Okay. So one region would be paired with another region, just like we have, I think, yeah, Central India is paired with South India. Two regions coupled for disaster, and another thing here is within a geography. So it's not like your Central India would be coupled with US. It's not like Japan would be coupled with maybe Singapore. So they would be in the same geography. This is not something we pick and choose. We don't choose this at all. This is already there. We don't have any control over it. So it's done by default. And this is for Microsoft own purposes. So that's why you consider this asynchronous application and stuff like that. So in case there's a disaster happens, you still have your data backup. But you can do some additional replication to make your data like more available or stuff like that. So that's a later part, but that's something you can do over it. This is just for Microsoft, how Microsoft does it. Okay, and it's going to be in the same geography, most of it, except I think Brazil South or Brazil that is coupled outside its geography, but most of it would be in the same geography. Okay, and they are coupled for that. Other than that, there would be region pair coupling. There are region pairs that we can just get it from the online. We can see which region is paired with which, and it's used if one region goes down, you still have your data in the other region. So Microsoft can use it to recover the region back, or your data is not permanently lost. Okay. And what else? Geography. It has to be in the same geography. They will be in the same geography, except I think just one region, that is Brazil. All right. So these are the components you will see in the Azure architecture. And like I said, 90% of the time, you will just need to worry about region. So which region your machines or your workload would be. That's all. And we will always choose the region that would be close to us. So if I am in North India, so I will possibly choose Central India. If you're in South, you can choose South India as well. So that's up to you. Okay. All right. Is this clear? Any questions? Yes, no?
No, sir, all good.
Okay. All right. So that is your architectural components of here and this. So we didn't see region pair. So let's just go to the portal and we can maybe see this, how these are provisioned. Okay. Just yep. Here. So if I just again go to Google and search for region, let's do this. Azure global infrastructure or region. Go to the first one. I will click on explore the globe. These are basically what we saw. You saw the images. These are what their data centers look like. And these data centers are with undisclosed location. So if you say Central India, it's going to be somewhere in the Central India. You won't get, direct exact address or something of it because of the security purposes. So you can see this globe. This is America. So here we can see we have many regions just inside America, right? There are, I think, 7 or 8 maybe. We have a lot of regions in the Europe. This one is West Europe. This one is Germany, West.
Sir,
Central.
basically regions like where the data centers are present, right? Is that so?
Right. So regions are where availability zones are, and availability zones are where the data center. So it's like multiple.
From where we are accessing the Azure folder, right? Where we are creating the
exactly where we are creating the resources. And if we see India, it shows 2 as of now because West India is still in making. So you can see here we have Central India, major one, and South India. That's somewhere here. This looks like in maybe Maharashtra or something, right? So that's there. And similar, we have this one. This is Southeast Asia. This is Singapore. This is East Asia. I'm not sure where this is. So this is in Hong Kong. Okay. So you can like see how many regions are there, and you can see this network which is moving constantly below the surface of sea level as well. So this is all called as Microsoft backbone when we can connect with each other, which are connected with each other. Okay. Is in India we have Australia we have 3
and all are connected to each other, right, sir? Like
yes.
All the zones where whether no matter where it is created, all are connected to each other.
Yeah, this is like a big Microsoft network infrastructure. So that because we want to create resource in any region at the moment. It's not like for UAE North, I have to sign into a different portal. For something else, I have to sign into a different portal. So this is all Microsoft infrastructure. You can see all across the globe. Okay. So I can put any of my resource in any of the region, just like in an instant because of this network. All right, so these are your networks. And if I go here again and search for region pairs, and go to Azure, open the first one. This is cross-region replication in Azure. And if I scroll down, you can see it here as well. So we have Azure region. In that, we have availability zone 1, 2, and 3. And each availability zone consists of, if you open this in new tab, you can read it here, one or more data centers. Okay, so there's going to be at least multiple data centers in each availability zone. If I go back here and scroll down, benefits, and here I have all the region pairs for application. Okay, so you can see Australia region is replicated with the Australia Southeast. If I'm coming to India, I have Central India that is replicated to South India. However, West India is new, so it is also replicated to South India. Okay, Japan is replicated to Japan, so it's not like one region would be replicated to outside the geography. However, like I said, one region is like that. This is one. Brazil South is replicated to US. Okay. So this is South America, this is North America. Only one region is Brazil South that is replicated outside. However, everything else you will see, Africa is in Africa, UAE is in UK is in UK. Okay. And if I see here, there's one more thing here. So Azure strives for ensure at least minimum of 300 miles. So each of these regions you can see replicated with each other, they're going to be at least 300 miles away from each other. So if there's a disaster occurs in one region, there you have like this much difference among them. So it like not ensures, but it does give you the probability that only one region would be affected with a natural disaster, not both of it. Okay. So again, that depends on geography size. Some might be more than that, but this is like at least 300 miles. Most of it going to be way more than that. Right? I can share this with you as well, the chat. So if you want to read more about the cross-regional application in Azure. Okay. Any questions on the infrastructure? So moving on, we discussed the architectural, right? How does it look like? And now let's discuss the hierarchy, basically. So we saw the physical architecture or physical hierarchy. Which is your regions, availability zones, and data centers. Okay. Now we'll discuss the logical hierarchy or resource hierarchy. So everything we will create in Azure, which kind of hierarchy does it follow? What is at the top scope? What is at the middle and bottom? So for that, we have these things. First, we have subscription. Then we have resource group. Okay. And then we have our resources. There's one other thing called management groups. Okay. So today, just to get an overview of, let's discuss this. Then we're going to work with these, like each of these in much more detail. So everything we create in Azure is going to be called as a resource. So if you're creating a virtual machine, it's called a resource. Either we are creating something storage related, that is a storage account. We call it in Azure storage account. Okay, and that is also called basically resource. So everything we create is considered resource, our resources. So they are at the bottom of the hierarchy. That's the R1 and R2. Could be multiple, of course, we know that. And resources are also can be considered as your services. Services. So virtual machine, if you just go to Azure and create a virtual machine, that virtual machine is considered as a resource. However, the service which we use to create a virtual machine is the service. So we use the services and we create the instances of it, and those instances are what we call as resource. So virtual machine is the service that everybody can use and make virtual machines from it. And those virtual machines that I made for my own, like I created a virtual machine called VM01. That virtual machine which I created already, which I'm using for my own, that is called as your resource. So that's a little bit of difference between service and resource. Okay, so this is at the bottom, resources, and resources would be some inside of resource group. Okay, let's say RG1. And again, we can have multiple resource group. Let's say there's one more, RG2, and it has its own resources, maybe R3, R4. Okay. And everything, or there are multiple resource groups, if they will be inside your subscription. Okay, this is a key sign taking. Let's just call it sub 1. Okay. So subscription, resource group, subscription, resource groups, and your resources. Just remember this. So what are resources we just discussed? So every service we use, we create something of an instance of it, and that is considered as resources. Whereas resource group are nothing but your container for resources. So everything I create or my resources, I can group them together in this logical container. So let's say I wanted to create a web application. So I required a virtual machine for that. I require a network for that. I require something else. So I can put all of these services, resources that are for one particular purpose and put them inside a resource group. So I know that everything that is inside it is for that particular purpose. I can give this resource group name called web application or something. I can create a resource group for maybe one particular team. I will give the name of Azure training, AZ104 training. So I can understand that all the resources that have been created inside this resource group would be for that training. So here where you can basically logical group your resources together in these containers, which are called as your resource groups. Okay. So 1, 2, 3, let's say all of these resources serving the same purposes, and that's why I put them into same container of resource group. And then there could be multiple resource group. Obviously, I won't have just one use case or one environment or something. That's why we have multiple resource groups. And all of it would be considered or be inside a subscription. And subscription is what we can consider as our Azure environment. And it is also a billing entity. Now, what does this mean? So environment, everything I want to create in Azure, basically I need the environment first. So if you create a free account in Azure, it will basically need subscription first. So it will just create a free subscription for you. So only after that, once you have a subscription, you can start working with Azure. Okay. That's why it's at the top of the hierarchy, not really top of the hierarchy, but by default, it's at the top of the hierarchy. Okay. And it is also billing entity. So based on the type of subscription you have, either it's a pay-as-you-go subscription, either it's an enterprise level subscription, whatever it is, it's going to build from that. So first, it's the environment where my resource is going to be, and all of the resources which I'm creating here, they will be built from my subscription. Okay. So this is what your hierarchy is. So first you would have subscription at the top, then you would have your resource groups. That would be a container for your logical container for your resources. Right? And subscription would be also the billing entity. So everything you will create inside the resource group and whichever resource you will create, it will get billed through the subscription. Okay. So everything inside the subscription, you will be charging or accumulating the cost at here.
Sir, subscription like we can say that we require according to our needs. So they provide the subscription according to our need, right? Like what are our requirements? Yeah.
Right. So basically, you purchase the subscription according to your needs. So if it's a subscription Azure for students, you can get that. You can get enterprise level subscription. Most of these in real world scenario going to be pay as you go. So you just sign up for the subscription, you convert it into the pay as you go, and whenever you're creating something, it will get charged per month. So you will just pay for per monthly basis based on whichever you will use.
And those subscription depends on the services we are using, right?
Subscription is basically same for everyone, most of the cases, and how much charge your subscription will have at the end of the month, that will depend on the services you are creating. So some subscription is basically empty if you don't create any resource, and you won't get charged. Okay.
So basically, like what kind of they charge? Like, is they charge related to the virtual machine or the resources we are using, or
Everything.
there is kind of a package for all of that?
Mhm.
Like
Uh,
suppose I need 5 servers for my
mhm,
infrastructure, right?
mhm.
And some of like maybe web servers and all that. So that will be combined in a package, or each machine will have its own cost.
Each thing will have its own cost. So basically, if you remember, this is no upfront. This is pay as you go. So you will sign up for a subscription, a pay as you go.
Okay.
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 And there will be no cost, zero cost for it. Okay. And after that, as soon as you even creating 5 machines, or you're creating 10 machines later on, you're creating one machine, deleting it, one machine, deleting it. That's up to you.
Okay.
So based on the time you are operating the resources you are creating, okay, those will be get charged by the end of the month.
Okay. So they will calculate all the things at the end of the month.
Yes.
We use.
Not even at the end of the month, they will calculate like in the real time, and you can see how much it can cost.
Okay.
It is
On
costing per
daily
minute.
on daily basis, we can see our billings, right?
Yeah, you can see at the second basis, at the minute basis as well. It's real time. Okay. So you can see how much you are making. So let's say after a week, it's over
So,
$100.
so sir, is it like costly or cheap if we compare with the other cloud services?
Mostly cloud services like AWS, Azure, GCP, most of these, all the prices are quite similar. They are like very, very similar. It could be one, let's say I'm running a virtual machine for an hour. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
It could be maybe difference would be maybe 10 rupees, could be 5 rupees, several stuff like that. So it's like very minimum difference you might see among the cloud service providers. Okay, so it's not much. All right. And one other thing, so everything you create, so this is the mandatory hierarchy. So if you are creating a resource, it has to be inside the resource group, and that resource group would have to be inside the subscription. Okay, it's not like you can create a resource that is not inside a resource group. So that's not possible. Everything you create, it should be inside a resource group. Okay, and now management groups. So let's say again, I create this environment here. Let's say I have this, I'll just call it sub1. Let's say this S1 is my subscription, and here I have resource groups. Okay, inside that I have resources, but I can have more than one subscriptions for myself. So I can have a subscription 2, I can have subscription 3, or stuff like that. So there could be multiple resource groups here, there's going to be resource groups here. Among that, there's going to be resources here, similar to that in this one or this one. Okay, so when I have multiple subscriptions, and if there is like maybe 50 subscriptions I have, okay, I might have one subscription for dev environment. I might have one subscription for test environment. Might have one subscription for production environment. I might have one subscription just for training. So everything that my people are creating inside the subscription. So I know that this much got costed for the training. Okay. So all that basically you can, for many reasons, you can have these subscriptions. And these are all mandatory. Whenever you create a subscription, it has to be resource group, it has a resource. However, there's an optional feature that you can use once you have many subscriptions. So just like we have resource group as a container for resources, we have something called as management group, MG, for the management of your subscriptions. Okay. Just like we can manage logically group together resources into the resource group, similarly, we can logically group together the subscriptions into the management group. Okay, so that's all the purposes. It's not mandatory to use. It's optional completely. If you need it, you can use it. If not, it's no issue. All right. And then I can have multiple management group inside management groups as well. So this is management group called, at the top, there's going to be a root management group. Okay. Again, we will see or work with this side by side. And then I can have multiple management groups inside management group. Let's say I have this one. It has more subscriptions here as 4, and I call it IT. Then in IT management group, I can have multiple subscriptions where I can say, let's say one subscription is for the test environment, one subscription is for something else. Okay. So based on this, basically, you have the additional level of hierarchy if you need. Then you can use it for multiple purposes. Either if you want to give somebody access to everything, you can just give them access at here, RBAC access. If you want to give somebody access at here only, you can give them here. If you want to give somebody access at here, you can give that here. Okay. So based on how big your environment is or how big your company is, you can have like very big hierarchy. It's all up to you. This one, at least one subscription resource group, and this is mandatory. Okay. But rest, this is optional if you want to make it. Okay. And how we can work with this one by one, that we're going to discuss in detail. Like we will actually be working on this quite a lot. Right? Sounds good. Any questions?
No, sir, like understandable. On every like group, there must be a management, root management, right? Under that, there will and then will comes the subscription, and after that comes the region, right?
Right. But like I said, management group is optional, the blue one. So when you have many subscriptions and you want to manage them, it's getting out of hand to manage them, then you can create additionally the management group. So first you will create a subscription. Okay. Then if you need resources, you will create resource group of resources. And then if you need management groups for multiple subscriptions, you can create management groups. Okay.
So, sir, are these subscription are interconnect to each other, or we have to like manually make them connect to each other?
Yeah, you have to manually make. So basically, if I am a user, right, and I have access to each of them, somebody gave me access to each of them, then
Okay.
I can work with any of these. Okay. But however, the services can talk with each other. Let's say once a virtual machine can talk with one virtual machine that is in another environment. That's something we have to configure manually. Okay. But as a user, if you want to work with multiple subscription, it's very easy. You just have to have access, and you can just switch between subscription quite easily. Okay. All right. So that is your resource or logical hierarchy of Azure. Okay. Now, a couple more topics, a little theoretical. Let's get them out of the way, and in the next class, we should be start working with the Azure itself. Okay. So, if there's no question, I just remove. We can move on. Yeah. So services in Azure, there are different domains, service domains, and there's something called as service level agreements. So what does this mean? So service domains are nothing but the services that are categorized. So if I'm talking about databases, I have services for databases. If I'm talking about security, I have services for security. Similar to compute, like virtual machines, applications, and I have services for what else? Networking, right? I have domain specific services like artificial intelligence or data engineering, data analytics maybe, and so on. Okay. So Azure, just like said, managed services are one of the major benefit of cloud. So similar, Azure have a lot of these services that are categorized into many categories. Right? And if I'm talking compute, let's take example of virtual machine that comes under compute. Networking, VNet comes under here. Security, you have a monitor and everything, etc. then each service which we are using comes with a service level agreement. Service level agreement can be considered as the commitments by let's say Microsoft. We're talking about Azure here. So Microsoft commitments by Microsoft. This would means the uptime, like at least for maybe 99.99%, your virtual machine would be up. Okay. Uh, Uptime, mostly as uptime or connectivity. Okay. So these are basically everything is written in the SLA of about each and every service for every service. Okay. Every service we have SLAs by Microsoft, and it gives the uptime and connectivity percentage. So let's say virtual machine, it will say it with 99.99% uptime. That might mean couple of seconds or couple of minutes per month. It can be not available. Okay. And if these commitments in Microsoft goes down or go over this commitment, you get compensated. So let's say uptime for virtual machine is 99.99%. But this month it was only 99 point maybe 9%. It may be only 99%. So once the service level agreement is not upheld or it goes below the commitment, you are compensated. Compensated. So that means whichever your monthly charge for Azure is, okay, you may get either 10% off, either 50% off on for that particular service, or you may get 100% off depending on how big of a downtime there was. Okay. So you will get like off on the services if SLA gets broken. Okay. And all this information is specific to service, either for VM, either for VNet or anything else. And if it's not commitment, you get compensated. Okay. And that is basically what is all written in the service level agreements. And then there are a couple things about it that services which are in preview or services which are free. So preview services or free services, they do not have SLAs. Okay, so preview services are services that are new and that are still in a little bit of testing. So Microsoft add, give you the services to test out or to learn about them. Initially, they are like officially released. So everything would be in the preview. It will be written as this. So if it's virtual machine, or if there's a feature of a virtual machine, let's VM inspector. There's a feature in virtual machine. Okay, and it's still preview as of now. It will say something like this: preview. Okay, with the bracket, everything that is in preview. So this preview services or features Microsoft doesn't recommend you to use in production environment. Okay, because it might cause issue. It may go down more than the time. So that's why they preach services in preview or the services which are all time free. Because if there are services that are already free, how you are gonna get compensated? Okay. So the services which are preview and services which are free, they don't have any SLAs. Okay, so if I just scroll, go to the browser. And let me just show you Azure portal. So here, this is what Azure portal looks like. Let me change the appearance. Okay, so this is what Azure portal looks like. You have to go to portal.azure.com. We're going to discuss about management tools. So there are other ways you can go to or reach Azure portal or interact with it, except the browser. So, but most common is this one, and this is called as Azure portal. Okay. So you can go here, and if we go to more services, I mean all services, here I have categories. So if I go to general, I have these services. I have subscriptions, I have management groups, I have resource groups. If I go to compute, I have virtual machines, virtual machine skill sets, app services. And based on that, all of the services are there. If I go to security, I have private link hub, Microsoft Defender for cloud, Azure Active Directory keyboards, and everything. Okay. Similar for DevOps and everything. So here we have all the services listed. Okay. And if I need a virtual machine, I will go to virtual machine service and create a virtual machine. And the virtual machine that I will create will be called as a resource. Okay. And now if I go to the new tab and go to Google and do Azure SLA and open the first link, service level agreements. And here I get the same category. Okay. Virtual machines and everything. And if I open any of these, I get the SLAs. This is introduction, what is SLA? This is general term they have been used. If I go to SLA details, and you can see here, monthly uptime percentage is over 99.99% for virtual machines only. And if it goes below that, you will get 10% back on the service credit. So for the service, whichever you got cost, you will get 10% off. If uptime is 99%, you will get 25%. And if it's below 99%, 95%, you will basically won't be paying for anything that month. Okay. And this is all written in the SLA. So as soon as this gets broken, you will get compensated automatically. If you go down, you can download the SLAs from here as well. Okay. And it's better to get the idea of this one before, because when you're working on a client environment, you might want them to be aware of these. Okay. So that it's 99%. So at least for a couple minutes a month, you can say that we can expect that service might not work as intended. Right? So that's where everything has to be clear before the client. And similar to that, if I go to management and if I go to Azure Advisor, so this is a service that is free. So free services doesn't have the SLA. So if I open this, and you can see here, Advisor is a free service, therefore it does not have a financially backed SLA. So similar to that, if the service is in preview, it doesn't have an SLA as well. Okay, and only those all services are here, and you can get the SLA from everything right here. Okay. Any questions so far?
No, sir.
Okay. All right. So that was that. And okay, we discussed with that. Let's go back to the whiteboard. So let's just see what we discussed. We have discussed hierarchy, we have discussed the architecture, shared responsibility model, types, and everything. Okay. And also, do you guys need these whiteboards, which I'm writing here, like for maybe revision or anything? If you need that, I can make that happen. Maybe I'll just share a link where I can upload all of these, unless, it can get deleted afterwards, the class.
Yeah, you can upload them, sir.
Okay. All right. So I will just upload each class's whiteboard, maybe in a Google Drive, and send the link in the resources section. So you have the access to the networking portal, right? Where you may have joined the today's class. So here, there you will see a resources section. And there I will just add the link, and you can just open the link, and classes wise, I will upload the whiteboards there. Okay. All right. So that's that. And what else? Okay, so let's done. This now let's discuss something called as Azure Advisor and Azure Marketplace. First, let's discuss Azure Marketplace because we just discussed services. So Azure Marketplace is where basically third party have worked together with Azure and bring you the solutions. Okay. So Azure Marketplace, you can just say that these are the third party solutions in collaboration with Azure. Okay. So let's say I want to implement firewall of Palo Alto. Okay, that is not native to Azure, right? So that I can do. So I can just go to Azure Marketplace where there are many third-party companies that have worked together with Azure and they have made that stuff happen in the Azure itself. So you don't have to go to the way outside, talk to these third-party third-party companies, and they will work together with you to provide the solution in cloud. So many companies have already these kind of solution made for you, which you might need in the Azure. Okay. So we can just go to Azure Marketplace, and there we should be able to see the services. And just like any other service we can create, we can create these services. Can create these services just like any other Azure service resource. Okay. So that is Azure Marketplace. So we saw the all services page where we can see all the services by Azure. However, there's Marketplace where we can see third-party solutions as well, which we want to use in Azure Cloud. And then there's a thing called Azure Advisor. That is a feedback service. It provides personalized feedback for your environment. So it has 5 areas it can provide feedback. Those are, one is cost, then security, then performance, then operational excellence, and finally cost, security, high availability. Okay, so this will run some test in your environment automatically. It will always monitor your environment. It is by Azure. So it will run some test in your environment for your environment and give you a personalized feedback in these 5 areas. So it will give you feedback that you can do this and it will save you on cost. You can do this, it will be better security practiced. Something to improve the performance of your services, something so you can use your service more efficiently, as well as it will check if your services is highly available or what you can do for it. Okay. So similar to this, this is a free service. You don't have to pay for anything. So free service that is always there, and it will provide the personalized feedback for your environment. So you have created something in Azure, it's gonna look into it. It's gonna, run some test on it and give you personalized feedback for those 5 areas. So you can go there. It will be considering the best practices by Microsoft itself. By Microsoft. So it will give those, it will use those best practices by Microsoft, and it will give you some recommendations. So personalized feedback, or we can say recommendations. So this will be recommendations specific to you and your environment. So you can do to improve in these 5 areas. Okay. That is Azure Advisor, what to do, and that is Azure Marketplace. So if I go back to the Azure portal for a second, and here it is. So this was all services where we get all the services by Azure, native services. And if I go here and search for Marketplace, hit enter. And here you can see all the solutions by third-party providers. You can see just security has 1800 solutions. If I want to create a WordPress in app service of Azure, I can just hit create and create it. Similar to that, I can get Red Hat Enterprise Linux. I can get Kali Linux as well. And let's say I want to do Fortinet virtual WAN, I can do that. I want Palo Alto firewalls or something. Palo Alto, let's search that. So you can see I can get Palo Alto Networks Panorama just like that. I can create anything else. I can create this as well, right? For web,
So we can create like sir, like Palo Alto. So it will open as an firewall, right? And we
yeah,
create rules and all that.
exactly. So it will be like just running that infrastructure in cloud. So this all you can see here. This is by Microsoft, all of it. Okay. And if I come to security, you can see this is by F5 Networks. This is not by Azure. So they have worked with Azure to get this service made in the cloud. Okay. And then you can just work with them just like any other service. Okay.
Okay.
So
No,
that's
so sir, like it will be like it will be chargeable, right?
yeah,
If
yeah.
we
It
related
will
to
be
firewall.
chargeable. Yes,
Okay.
everything here is chargeable basically by operational expenses. Okay. It just depends on what kind of service you're using. So if you're using, let's say, Kali Linux. So this is a Linux which is we know that it's going to be open source. Okay, so you will be only be paying for the virtual machine it will be running on. You won't be paying for Kali Linux because it's free. However,
Yeah, it's
we
an
know that
Linux is, yeah, it's free. We only paying for the resources, right?
service running.
Yeah.
Yes. However, if you work for, let's say, Red Hat Enterprise or something else, the charge you will get for that virtual machine or something else, whatever kind of service it is, it will include that as well. So you don't have to worry about the licensing or anything. So if you do MongoDB, it will just get Azure MongoDB on Azure. Okay. And you can switch pay as you go. So it will just, you can just subscribe to it or work with it, and it will get charges in by the end of your month on your whenever you're doing it. Okay. It's not like you have to work with these services or anything. However, the charges of using these services would be included in your monthly, not monthly, we can say, real time environment. Okay. And now we also have to see advisor. So if I just search for advisor, this is your Azure advisor. If I open this, it's gonna refresh the recommendations, and I have one recommendation on cost, one recommendation on the reliability. This is a test environment, so that's why we don't have much. However, we can see here, buy virtual machine reserved instances to save on money. Right now, there is potential over $70 US dollars for one virtual machine. Okay. And if I say reliability, they say use NAT gateway for your outbound traffic, so it can prevent from connection failures or connection failures. Okay. However, this is just medium, so I'm fine. So basically that you get this 5 recommendation for cost, security, reliability, operational excellence, and performance. So whenever advisor sees something you can improve with your environment, you can just come here and look into it. Okay. Because I just have 2 things that I can improve on. Okay. So now, any questions? What we have discussed today? I know it was a lot of theoretical, little bit we saw in the portal as well. But yeah, that was all we had to discuss in the cloud basics and Azure basics. So we discussed service domains, Azure, advisor, marketplace, hierarchy. What are these things? Region pairs, architecture, shared responsibility. So yeah, a lot we have discussed today. Any question of any of these, like whichever we have done today? Something that wasn't clear or everything is good?
Not exactly, sir, like clear most of the things.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
sir, and like the practical will be in upcoming class, right?
Yeah. With upcoming class, let me just check. Yeah, with upcoming class, we're just gonna work with Azure directly. Yep. Most of the theoretical portion is done. So how are we
Yeah.
gonna go? Basically, I will teach some service. How are we gonna work with it? What is it all about? And as soon as we understand about the service, we're just gonna go to the Azure and start working with it.
Yeah. Right.
Yep. So all good.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
For now.
Okay. Awesome. So okay, guys. So I guess we can wrap up for today. Here. And right after in the next class, that is again after a week on Saturday. So then we will start working with the AC104 directly.
Practical we start on the next class, no?
Yeah. By next class, we will be starting with that administration. Okay. Okay then.
And sir,
So
what about the videos? When will the videos will be uploaded on the portal?
I think they get uploaded. What we say daily. So by tomorrow, you should get the videos. Again, that's
Because
not some
actually the thing is in the upcoming to this weekend, I'm not sure I'm able to attend the class. That's why I'm asking.
next weekend.
Yeah, because there is an activity in my company. DIT
Okay.
is going to happen. Yeah. So basically it's in North America. So here will be night and there will be day. So I
Yeah.
don't know when it will be start. Yeah. So it will be difficult for me to attend. So that's why I'm asking.
Okay.
Maybe I
Okay.
can attend on Sunday, but not on Saturday, most probably.
Okay. No worries. So yeah, from my understanding, they do upload the videos regularly. Just maybe next day you will get the video. I'm pretty sure before that. So I don't work with that side of things. But from what I've seen, generally within a day the videos get uploaded. Okay then. Take care, guys. Bye.